The narrative opens in a regular high school classroom window. Some youngsters point at a beautiful girl in sheer amusement, expressing astonishment at her presence in their school due to her low-level background. They even mock her odd dressing. However, one of them doesn't join in their derogatory discussion and looks quite perplexed. Suddenly, the lads find her staring at them and beamingly wave to her, but the girl gives them a cold shoulder and walks away. The guys feel offended by her attitude and pass disrespectful comments about her. It's revealed that her lower-level school is right next to their elite academy. The boys make fun of the students there, saying they have no goals and their futures are already decided. According to them, the weird girl will also have a similar fate, ending up relying on wealthy men just to get by. The MC, having a serious expression on his face, snaps at them for crossing their limits. The others scorn him as a clueless tanuki and ask him to repeat his words. Tanuki prefers not to, and his timidness makes them pull his leg further. However, Tanuki has secrets, and that's why he remains mostly silent. After school, when he pulls out his key to open the door to his apartment, it is unexpectedly set ajar by none other than that same beautiful girl from low-level high school, and he addresses her as Big Sis. Although he treats her very gently and politely, she is horrible to him. He notices she is all set to go somewhere, so he casually probes her about that. She icily tells him not to meddle in her affairs and storms out. Instantly, he notices a price tag still hanging from her clothes and quickly points that out to her. He cannot help but wonder about the sloppiness of her dressing, but she swiftly tears off the tag. Priorities. Mystery outing first. Basic clothing checks, never. She senses his gaze still fixated on her back, so she turns around and inquires about that. When he appears puzzled, she curses him angrily and dashes away. Tanuki is aware that his non-biological sister is very popular around. He wants to show her that family isn't just about blood. Later that evening, while studying with a friend, Tanuki asks his friend what he thinks the word family means. His friend gives a practical answer, saying it's a relationship that exists in all situations. Tanuki agrees quietly. His friend becomes curious about Tanuki's opinion. When he can't explain clearly, his friend guesses he might be talking about his older sister. Tanuki confirms that guess. His friend laughs, saying he knows Tanuki better than anyone else. He explains that his relationship with his sister has become strained. She has started to distance herself from him. Talking about her makes him tired. His friend tries to cheer him up by showing him a phone app called Let Me Understand, because obviously, emotional problems are best solved with an app. Looking at Tanuki's expressions, it seems as if he has never heard of it before, and that is quite shocking for his friend. Quite dramatically, his friend showers upon his generosity by uncovering the dynamics of the app. Tanuki is not very pleased to see his friend's involvement in adult stuff despite being a minor. His friend scorns his stupidity and explains that the app is merely to make a stubborn girl lower her guard. Tanuki shudders to hear that, and his friend finds his reaction quite childish. Euphorically, his friend paints a captivating picture of a stubborn girl becoming into a cute one. When Tanuki still appears baffled, his friend cannot believe his blockheadedness. Quite candidly, his friend highlights how this app could help him understand and deal with his older sister. Tanuki is dumbstruck and is unable to respond for a moment. His friend can irritably feel his head on fire. Later that night, Tanuki is about to have dinner with his parents when his father asks him to bring his older sister. He agrees reluctantly and knocks at her door. When no one responds, he assumes that she isn't home yet. However, to his surprise, he spots her heading towards the entrance and approaches her quickly. He calls her for dinner, but she coldly shuns him. He nervously reasons about how dinners are a family thing, but she finds him quite annoying. He mentions how they are all a family, and for a moment, she freezes on her steps. She turns around and, with an anguished gaze, denies being part of the family. When he stares at her wide-eyed, she condemns him and addresses him with her signature nickname, but he probes her about hanging out so late at night, dressed in an unusual way for the situation. She rebukes him for being so meddlesome. It dawns on him that she has undergone a massive change lately since she wasn't so cheeky and bratty before. And finally, he convinces himself to use the much-hyped Let Me Understand app to dig into her deeper, because if conversation fails, questionable technology surely won't. Much later, Tanuki's older sister can be seen in some shady tavern with a bunch of wasted youngsters. She, however, seems hesitant, staring at a can nervously. A guy addresses her as Kono and teases her for being a complete novice despite being 22. Covered with sweat, she admits that she has never done such a thing before. It is revealed that she had decided to come here after much coaxing from those guys, and they urge her to gulp down the can's contents. Ah, yes, peer pressure, the timeless mark of great decision-making. When she still appears uncertain, one of them puts his arm around her and pressures her to join in. The others watch, teasing her for being hesitant. When Kano still tries to resist, the hoodlum's face turns serious as he sinisterly tells her to sense the environment of the room. He brainwashes her about how he took the liberty to invite her to this so-called cool party, despite her being so unpopular at school. He jeers at her for not being daring enough to get wasted despite being a nutbrain. His sharp words do the trick as she quickly gulps down the whole can in one go. The others cheer her for being a bravo, taking that huge chug, but Kano is completely knocked out and collapses on the floor. The guys excitedly film her and then decide to have some fun with her. Kano weakly expresses her desire to go home, but that goon is in no mood to let her go and reveals his vicious motive to invite her in the first place. The delinquent begins to toy with Kano while she lies nearly unconscious. He even mocks Tanuki behind his back for eyeing his own older sister questionably, according to a rumor. Suddenly, he is startled by the doorbell, and he assumes a food delivery. He probes others about it, but they express complete cluelessness. One of them orders the guy who is busy filming the interesting scene before him to check the door. But when he shows reluctance, he is compelled to do so by a deathly stare. The intimidated lad reaches the door, muttering irritably, and peeks at the eye-hole to see a hooded guy. The hooded lad cheerfully introduces himself as a delivery guy, baffling the video boy with this unexpected call. He opens the door and is shocked to see a huge platter of assorted sushi presented by the hooded lad. The delinquents are all excited about this expensive surprise, but are still curious about the sender. The delivery boy informs them that Kano ordered them. They all mockingly praise her for her immense generosity and her naivety. They believe that she is quite flexible and yet gullible. One of the hoodlums realizes that the delivery boy is still standing in the room and asks him to disperse, when the boy announces that he has something to collect as well. They make fun of him for making a fuss over a piece of crockery, when to their immense shock, he gathers Kano in his arms. The leader of the gang menacingly tries to stop him, but then he is thunderstruck to learn that the delivery boy is none other than Kano's younger brother, Tanuki. The hoodlum teases him for being a siscon and coaxes him to hand over Kano. Ah yes, mock the guy currently carrying your consequences away. Laughing vulgarly, he claims that Tanuki spoiled their magical moment. In a chilling tone, Tanuki addresses the gang leader as Yohei Kuretani, along with his exact university name, department, and year. Yohei is not a bit daunted by some mere details about him, but then Tanuki blows the whistle on each and every aspect of his life, from his date of birth to every bit of crime he committed. He even uncovers that Yohei is currently under probation due to an assault case and is hiding from the police. All the blood is drained from Yohei's face as he jitterily wonders about Tanuki's accurate source. A deadpan Tanuki claims that Yohei's life story is the talk of the town since they live in a countryside where news travels faster than light. On reckoning that the iron is hot, Tanuki warns him from partying so extravagantly when he is wanted everywhere. Turns out gossip is more efficient than law enforcement. Sensing Yohei's ghastly appearance, his friends are anxious, and so Tanuki manages to bring Kano home safe and sound. He puts her down near the door and stares at her distressfully as she fidgets in her sleep. He gently tries to wake her up. She fumbles and tosses uncomfortably and then gradually opens her eyes. She is shocked to find herself sprawled on the doorstep with Tanuki watching her over anxiously. He expresses his concern about her getting sick lying like that in the cold. He pretends to be curious about her lounging in such an odd manner. She bashfully tries to keep him away from her matters. Nevertheless, he offers her bottled water, guessing that she was forcefully intoxicated despite her low tolerance level. She miserably refuses to accept that. He gazes at her thoughtfully, then quietly places the water near her and walks away. She stares at the bottle for some time and then tries to unscrew its lid, but no matter how hard she tries, she fails. Wearily, she reprimands him for handing her an unopened bottle, but this time her tone has softened a bit. As she wobbles towards her room carrying the unopened bottle, she fails to understand her docile reaction towards Tanuki. Meanwhile, he is still not satisfied with his endeavors and vows to put in more effort to amend their relationship. Because clearly, what this situation needs is even more effort. It can be seen that his success level on Let Me Understand has reached 9%. The next day at school, Tanuki's friend excitedly mentions the sushi incident in which he heroically saved Kano. When Tanuki hesitates to answer, his friend brings up the rumors spreading around and jokingly asks if he actually made her understand. His friend is convinced Tanuki is doing something clever and guesses that Kano may have started opening up about her feelings. Tanuki stays silent and keeps eating, but his friend's imagination runs wild. He starts picturing things in an exaggerated way. Shocked, Tanuki scolds him for thinking like that. He explains that it makes him uncomfortable when people imagine things about Kano like that. His friend quickly apologizes, and an awkward silence falls between them. Tanuki then expresses his gratitude to him for showing him a path that helped him rescue his sister. He highlights that she is publicly known as a foul-mouthed delinquent, but in reality, she is a naive and timid person, as always, and in fact, easy to manipulate nowadays. He believes this is the reason why people always dupe her. Plus, he can never use torturous techniques to break her, as those will always drive him towards guilt mode. He makes a beautiful comparison of their relationship with a tied rope, which, once broken by force, can never regain its original form. He believes that a troubled person should be handled with immense care by maintaining a considerable distance from them and encouraging their personal growth. Tanuki proposes his own three-step methodology, which starts with knowing Kano's surrounding environment, followed by creating appropriate strategies and extracting the best from the negative elements. According to him, this is the foundation of the Let Me Understand app. His friend stares at him in sheer awe, and then, after a momentary pause, lauds his courageous move to raid a shady shack. Tanuki is aware that the reason she ended up in that dirt was due to her environment, and he wanted to confirm. Shocked, his friend guesses that Tanuki would probably try to detach her from her peers, but a soft-hearted Tanuki can never do that. The animated twinkle returns to his friend's eyes as he makes a wild guess of Tanuki emotionally NTR in Kano's friends. Tanuki irritably doubts whether his friend has been an attentive listener all this time. Suddenly, he receives an unexpected call from his mom, who anxiously informs him about Kano's sudden collapse, because nothing says high school drama like instant plot twists via phone call. The next morning, Tanuki can be seen knocking cautiously on Kano's door, carrying her breakfast tray. When she doesn't respond, he announces his entrance and heads inside. He finds a frail Kano lying on her bed, wondering whether he has come to mock her. He explains that he has brought some porridge that their mother made to make her feel better, but she spitefully refuses any favors from his side and finds him quite annoying. However, he is adamant about feeding her emaciated self some essential nutrients and reprimands her for going out underdressed on such a chilly night. She frustratingly mutters to herself, but he insists that she should eat something before taking medicine since she has been on an empty stomach ever since she got intoxicated. She miserably turns away her face, trying to shun him off, claiming that she is the only outsider in this family, not related by blood. She cannot understand why he keeps coming back to her, despite being ruthlessly rejected by her. But the only thing Tanuki cares about is that they are family, no matter what. She continues avoiding him, so he decides to eat the porridge himself if she refuses to do so. Instantly, she reaches out to him and tugs at his shirt, expressing her desire to have the porridge. Tanuki is bewildered, and even Kano wasn't expecting that from herself, so she bashfully apologizes for her impulsiveness, because nothing motivates action like the imminent threat of someone else eating your breakfast. Tanuki nervously looks here and there, wondering whether his aid is further needed, but to his astonishment, she refuses with a smile, although still terming him annoying. Their relationship shows promising improvement as the "let me understand" level elevates to 38%. Meanwhile, a teacher in the school's staff room is perplexed to read Kano's career hope form because, like always, she has left the career preference section blank. The teacher is certain that she needs firm career guidance. A particular distance learning school called Hiroshima Prefecture Hisho High School is highlighted, which is located centrally. Here, the students are supposed to attend a few days a month to get instructions from each subject teacher, and it appears that Kano is one of them. They are not required to wear any uniform, and the subject selection and schedule are quite flexible. Also, there is no age or gender restriction, and anyone can enroll. That day, Kano is having a test, and after that, she quietly walks along the busy corridor, buzzing with various students. The students are busy talking about subject classes, teacher correspondence, and assignments. In front of the staff room, there are many subject slots fixed on the walls in which students can slip in their respective completed assignments. Kano is doing the same when a frail old lady stands beside her, anxiously searching for Japanese language. The poor lady is desperate to submit her report before her next class, or else she won't be able to make it. Kano gazes at her thoughtfully, then points at a slot on the top level, labeled Japanese language. The woman affirms, but expresses her helplessness as she is unable to reach it, being so tiny. Now the slot is just above Kano's head level, so she offers to help her out. The old woman is grateful to her, and at the same time feels embarrassed about bothering Kano. With an assuring smile, Kano grabs the envelope from her hand and slips it in the slot. Out of the blue, someone appears and praises her efforts. Kano turns around and finds out that it is her teacher, Higashioka Hiroshi, beaming at her. He inquires about her well-being since he was informed about her ill health. She affirms and assures him about her recovery. The teacher expresses his relief since he doubted she would be able to make it that year. Next, he holds out her career hope form, asking her to visit the career guidance office, and Kano appears to be oddly hesitant. Kano obliges and enters the career guidance office along with Mr. Hiroshi. He is glad that he found her on his way because she never bothered to respond to his calls. He orders her to sit on the couch while he prepares coffee for her. Kano nervously crouches on a corner when his icy words strike her as he emphasizes how teachers have better things to do than chasing delinquents like her. Because nothing says, "welcome," like a guilt trip served with hot coffee. With a sinister grin, he tries to enforce upon her the consequences he would be facing just for her vile actions. Kano cowers in panic at his bizarre attitude and meekly apologizes. Seeing her all vulnerable, the awful man pretends to be concerned about her. The man has malicious intentions toward her, and he tries to lower her self-esteem by targeting her poor performance in studies. He belittles her for being a burden to her family. An embarrassed Kano clenches her skirt tightly and blurts out a broken apology. The filthy man feels more provoked by her helplessness and continues getting closer to her, showing fake care for her education. He realizes her self-esteem is very low. He then invades her personal space and starts making hurtful comments. He brings up how her biological mother abandoned her and claims her current family might do the same if she doesn't change. The rogue is quite aware that she is not frank with her foster family and tries to take advantage of that. He slowly places his arm around her neck, whispering sugary words in her ears, and intending to pounce on her like a big bad wolf. Thankfully, Kano is more alert than he can imagine, and she quickly gets away from him. The shocked man cannot believe being shunned like that, so he tries to protest weakly about her career guidance. She declares that this is her family matter and shuts the door behind her. The rotten man is left in a stupor by her boldness because Kano has always been so timid, but the vulgar man is adamant to make future attempts on her. On the other hand, a dejected Kano walks out of the school. As the rogue's poisonous words replay in her mind, her "let me understand" level drops sharply to 30% and then to a miserable 18%. Suddenly, she is spotted by Tanuki and his friend and instantly calls out to her. She looks at him sadly, leaving his friend completely stunned. Tanuki wonders whether Kano is heading home, but she only stares at him miserably. He feels puzzled by her behavior. Just then, his excited friend suddenly appears between them, trying to act friendly with her. He treats her like a celebrity, completely captivated by her presence. Tanuki notices her red, sore eyes and guesses that she has been crying. As usual, she gets irritated by how accurate he is and angrily turns away. He quickly follows her and points out that she is going in the wrong direction. Worried that she might get lost, he continues after her, but she snaps at him for following her. At that moment, his clumsy friend trips and falls flat on his face. Kano quickly turns around in concern to check if he is okay. However, he keeps talking excitedly, saying how long it has been since he last saw her. He then introduces himself as Takanaka, Tanuki's best friend, and asks if she still remembers him. Kano is startled and struggles to respond, while the messy-looking Takanaka continues praising her enthusiastically. He soon invites her to grab something to eat with them. Before long, the three of them are at a convenience store, buying ice cream. Takanaka is as energetic as ever, staring in awe at his first store-bought ice cream cone. Tanuki then tells Kano to eat her popsicle quickly since it is starting to melt. She snaps at him again for being bossy. Despite trying to be careful, her ice cream begins to melt and drips down her neck. She stops eating in irritation, while Tanuki watches in confusion. He seems uncomfortable with Kano's eating habits, and she bashfully protests that it is a mere spill. He wonders whether she has a hanky to clean herself up, and of course, this is very unlikely for her. He offers his own, but she coldly refuses to accept it. He expresses his concern about her going home with soiled clothes since they still have to walk a lot. Frustrated to the core, she snatches the hanky from his hand, calling him a nosy Parker, but an unaffected Tanuki points at her usual clumsy attitude. Takanaka clasps his mouth in shock while she glares at him for showing such audacity. Ignoring her fiery reaction, he mentions how she forgot to untag her clothes that day, caught a cold due to recklessness, and then lacks eating manners, plus not bothering to keep a hanky. A masterclass in sibling lecture, combining embarrassment, cold logic, and unsolicited fashion advice. She bitterly tries to protest, but he encourages her to pour out her heart to him. She gazes at him in uncertainty, thinking whether she should obey him in this regard, but then quickly changes her mind, cleaning herself furiously. She curtly spits out a thanks to him, which is beamingly accepted by him. Meanwhile, Takanaka is intently observing his moves. Tanuki's cheerfulness enrages Kano, who suspects he is making fun of her, but he quickly clarifies himself. It is then that Takanaka grasps what Tanuki is trying to do, like getting closer to her to dig out her true feelings. He animatedly punches his fist in the air on reckoning his method of winning her heart. Kano pretends to ignore them by checking out her phone, so when the lunatic Takanaka is about to let the cat out of the bag about Tanuki's main strategy, his mouth is forcibly stuffed with a bottle by a hysterical Tanuki so that he can zip up. At the same moment, Kano hands them a bag and orders them to go home without her. Standing in the same hilarious position, both boys wonder about the upcoming bombshell. Unexpectedly, Kano visits someone's house, where she claims to have left her bag. It appears that the resident of that place is the same horrid hoodlum, Yohei, from whom Tanuki had rescued her a few days back. The cunning Yohei artfully tries to lure her in by manipulating her, and is easily successful. Kano enters his house apprehensively, and soon he hands her the purse, because nothing says fun afternoon like returning lost property to a known troublemaker. As she is about to leave, he restrains her by placing his hand on her shoulder. He shows his concern for her and then decides to call others, against her wishes. As he plans to hold a little get-together for her, something inside Kano warns her of yet another upcoming danger. At the same moment, she receives a message from Tanuki, inquiring about her whereabouts. Although she is slightly annoyed by his concern, this time she wants to act strong. Tanuki informs her that they are having delicious hamburgers for dinner and advises her to come back safe and sound. Her eyes are filled with tears of gratitude at his childish perseverance, and with a dazzling beam, she realizes that even she has a caring family. On the other hand, the wicked lad has convinced his gang to come over to have some fun with her, and then woos her for being so popular. But deep down, Kano is quite aware of his filthy mind, so when he tries to make an advance on her, she roughly shoves him off and announces her exit. Yohei is taken aback by her sudden swerve of courage, and then slanderously plays with her mind about her being selfish and that her attitude will leave her with no friends. She cheerfully mentions a hamburger steak and a family waiting for her at home. Yohei mocks her for losing her marbles, but this time she doesn't care and vows never to return to this hell again. The sky gets dark when Tanuki is busy setting the table. He turns around on a message beep, which is from his parents who have safely reached their destination. At the same moment, Kano enters the house, and for a moment, he is dumbstruck to see her tear-stained face. He quickly poses a huge grin and welcomes her cheerfully. She is surprised to see the table laid for two and inquires about his parents. He explains that he had won some tickets for the hot springs and handed them to his parents, so they are on a short vacation. Her eyes are wide open to see a beautifully presented, delicious hamburger steak, so when he claims to have made it all by himself, she looks at him doubtfully. Sensing slight disappointment on his face, she praises him for his effort. Now that was too unexpected from her side, putting him in a stupor. She sets out to wash her hands so that she can dig into the food as soon as possible. Tanuki stares at her in disbelief, wondering whether she has reverted to her original self. While washing her hands in the washroom, she stares at her sullen face, which makes her guilty for her recent behavior. She is unable to figure out which expression to paste on her face that doesn't reveal her well-guarded feelings. She tries her level best to appear as calm as possible and joins him at the table. She serenely digs into the food, and then an odd smile appears on her face as she expresses her delight about the delicious food. But her bizarre behavior further troubles Tanuki. He gently points out that she doesn't need to hold herself back forcibly. Kano is baffled by his remark, so after a momentary pause, he recalls how she has been like that since their childhood. Whenever she was tense, her facial features tightened and her voice lowered. To Kano's alarm, he knows exactly what she has been thinking, like being confused about what expression to wear to hide the guilt for her recent inappropriate behavior. Finally, she bashfully opens up about how she was struck by an inferiority complex, and because of that, she treated him rudely. She is deeply remorseful for treating him like that, because he has always been so kind, but she knows her bad conduct is irreversible, so she doesn't know how to behave around him. He beamingly makes the whole deal a piece of cake. Like fight, reconcile, eat together, and then laud his food. He explains this is what family is about, and true siblings follow those dynamics. He reminds her that they have been following those rules since childhood. Reality hits Kano hard as she remains dumbstruck for a while, but then she breaks into a playful grin, realizing how smart her little brother has become. But Tanuki's motive is to strengthen understanding between themselves. Quite hesitantly, she digs into the steak and then enjoys its aromatic flavors. Automatically, the let me understand level soars to a whopping height of 55%, and he notices how her face dazzles whenever she pops in her favorite food. On the other hand, in the eerie silence of the dark career guidance room, Mr. Hiroshi maniacally stares at Kano's photograph pasted on her form. It is revealed that the sick man is completely into her and is adamant about guiding her from now on. Kano is having the time of her life, having her favorite meal with Tanuki. She finds the food so delicious that she keeps on stuffing herself. It appears that he has taken great pains to prepare such an amazing meal, including her favorite sauce, miso soup, and perfectly cooked rice. She is very much impressed by his culinary skills and expresses it generously. Tanuki is stunned for a moment and then suddenly points out a bit of meat sticking near her mouth. She nervously fumbles her chin and finally manages to pull out a stubborn morsel on her finger. He anxiously observes the drastic transformation of her expressions from cheerful mode to humiliated mode as her cheeks redden deeply. The sibling tussle returns as she flusteredly wonders whether her face is clean, and he assures her that it is, but to his frustration, she urges him to look carefully. The next day, during lunch break, Takanaka is amazed to learn about the memorable sister-brother meal event last night. He finds it quite hilarious that, in his excitement, Tanuki had prepared so much hamburger mix, and now he has to eat hamburgers for days. Not only that, but he even burned a hole in his pocket to send his parents away so that he could have some alone time with his sister. Tanuki presents his own theory that Kano wouldn't have opened up in their parents' presence, but Takanaka doesn't buy that and keeps on pulling his leg. In response, Tanuki lets out a never-ending jabber to explain his intentions for last night's dinner plan, until he admits that Takanaka is right. He has observed his obsession with Kano since they are not real siblings. Tanuki explains that they are cousins, and Kano is his maternal aunt's daughter. Still, Takanaka is curious about Tanuki pushing himself for her, and here Tanuki stutters because he has no answer. Out of the blue, Takanaka spots Mr. Hiroshi and is shocked to see him entering their premises. However, Tanuki is seeing him for the first time, so he inquires about him. Takanaka introduces him as the guidance counselor, hot-blooded instructor Higashioka, from the neighboring high school. He is surprised that Tanuki has never heard of him. When Tanuki asks for more details, Takanaka looks him up online. They discover that Higashioka has helped many students get into prestigious universities and is well known for his sharp personality. There is a lot of information about Higashioka Hiroshi on the internet. Takanaka then tells Tanuki to check out an interview he gave 5 years ago. He is surprised that a teacher was interviewed online. Takanaka explains that the teacher was involved in some trouble back then, which led to his transfer. Instantly, Tanuki opens that particular news page related to Mr. Hiroshi, whose face has been partially redacted. He is shocked to learn that the vile teacher was convicted of manipulating weak-willed students and obscenely harassing them. Tanuki is horrified and has a really bad feeling about this. Even after lunch period, Takanaka's words ring in his mind about him being so possessive about Kano, despite not being her real brother. He recalls her spiteful behavior towards him, and then her sudden behavioral transformation last night. In the end, he concludes that no matter what, she is his precious family. As he reaches the classroom, the loudspeaker bellows with an announcement calling for Tanuki to immediately report to the staff room. The announcement is repeated to everyone's surprise because this has rarely happened before. This is because he has a clean record, but lately some bizarre rumors have been circulating about him. A panic-stricken Tanuki slowly walks towards the staff room, fearing what lies ahead. Thankfully, Takanaka decides to come along with him, and on entering the staff room, Tanuki nervously introduces himself. Surprisingly, it appears that the call was made by Mr. Hiroshi, who seems very pleased to see him. As predicted, the wicked teacher intends to detach Kano from the rest of her family and wants to portray her as a defaulter, so he puts on a nice smile and pleasantly greets Tanuki, although Takanaka anxiously warns him against the sly Mr. Hiroshi. Their homeroom teacher is concerned about whether Hiroshi is here for Tanuki. Hiroshi, desperate to show Kano that his mature guidance is her dire requirement, instantly discovers that Tanuki's sister is his student. Hiroshi isn't quite pleased with the homeroom teacher's intervention, but it seems like this is the only way. The homeroom teacher realizes that he is here for Kano because her parents have shared details with him. Hiroshi dramatically slaps his forehead because the person in front of him is not getting what he is implying. Surprisingly, Tanuki confidently declares himself as Kano's family and boldly inquires about the reason he was called. For a moment, Hiroshi is stunned at his firmness, but then realizes that he is the perfect one to talk to. He pretends to be relieved to have discovered a sensible relative of Kano, because discovering that someone isn't a total pushover is truly shocking in 2026. Next, he hands him a future goals sheet. When an astonished Tanuki inquires about that, Hiroshi complains how he has gone lengths to counsel her for her career, but it appears she is not ready to budge from her first written goal. When Tanuki stares at him inquisitively, he clarifies how Kono wants to get into cosmetology school, but she has surpassed the age limit. Kono appears concerned, but not as Hiroshi expected. Hiroshi makes another attack by warning him against her joblessness, which can overburden his parents. Hiroshi believes that, like other teenagers, Tanuki will get irked by a cohabitant unrelated to him, causing trouble for his family. And on top of that, he can imagine Tanuki firing up on Kono being publicly declared his sister and family. He artfully mentions how Kono abandoned his guidance to talk over her matter with her family. To his immense shock, Tanuki appears super relieved to learn that Kono trusted her family for important discussions. It suddenly dawns on Hiroshi that Tanuki is the main culprit behind Kono's drastic attitude change. On the front, he pretends to be relieved that Kono has supportive relatives and that the purpose of his visit has been fulfilled. Deep down, the vile man is all set to create another plan to take Kono back into his hands again. He smiles and instructs him to give the form to his sister, and the meeting is dismissed. Takanaka is still trying to digest what just happened and mocks the timid homeroom teacher who sat like a mouse in front of Hiroshi. To Takanaka, Hiroshi seems the same shady person as rumored and totally unfit to be an instructor. Tanuki condemns the state school for its recklessness and expresses Hiroshi's intention to hide behind a low-profile high school. He fears that he might have gotten worse and has this sick feeling in his stomach that he might be targeting Kono. Kono is busy with her coursework at home and then stretches herself out in sheer exhaustion. Suddenly, her stomach begins to growl like a beast, reminding her that she hasn't eaten anything since morning. An image of last night's juicy, delicious hamburger flashes in her mind, and she just longs to have it again. At the same time, Tanuki enters and slithers by her. Kono grits her teeth in sheer fury and lashes out at him for frightening her, because nothing says welcome home like a surprise heart attack from a roommate. Tanuki snaps back at her for being unreasonable, but she irritably suspects that he heard her being desperate for his cooked food. It is then that he notices the homework she mentions is due on the next school day. He expresses his awe of her work, which stuns her completely because she is not used to being praised. However, her self-esteem drops in pits when she doubts he is just praising her to be nice, or worse, in mockery. He clarifies that there is nothing wrong with praising one's normal efforts. Normal efforts? Great, I've peaked already. Next, he smirks a little and claims that praising every little thing is his style. Now she knows that he is not lying because his signature smirk and pretend to be cool look always tells the truth. She reverts to her cheerful mode and comments on his fixed conduct. Suddenly, his face turns grave when he unexpectedly inquires her opinion about Higashioka Hiroshi. Kono becomes jittery on hearing that name and wonders how Tanuki knew that guy. She wonders about the reason Tanuki brought that man up. Tanuki anxiously notices her panic-stricken face. He decides to hide the actual thing and mentions that he learnt about him from Takanaka. Next, he mentions all the notorious rumors related to him. Kono expresses cluelessness about his popularity, and Tanuki believes her ignorance in this regard. When she probes him about it further, he turns away, assuring her that he just got a little worried. The reason is that he already noticed the expression on her face and doesn't want to delve deeper, but Kono is sharper than he thinks and becomes suspicious. She doubts that he is being truthful to her and condemns him for acting so superior. When he still doesn't respond, she guesses that Hiroshi himself sought him out. Oh sure, because every villain needs a personal PR agent. Tanuki is shocked at her on-target guess, so she simply explains that he never cared about rumors before. Tanuki's abashed expression puts a stamp on her suspicions. She decides to narrate the whole story to him by mentioning how being a beauticina was her sole goal, but the moment that Wicked Man's shadow fell on her, he discouraged her from following her dream. She makes a horrific revelation that whenever she turned in her future goals list, he always discarded it. The poor gal became helpless, having no one to confide in about her future goals. However, now she has made peace with the fact that it is useless to chase her dreams, since she doesn't want to overburden his family and become financially independent. But the only thing that scares her is finding an appropriate place to live after she graduates. A wave of pity sweeps all over him when he gets the hang of her true feelings. Still, she didn't expect that Crook would actually get to him and feels guilty for being troublesome again. Out of an emotional surge, he grabs her arms and pulls her close, giving her his full assurance that she is not a source of any problems for them. He encourages her not to give up on her dream, which he has known about for ages. He holds her hands and pleads with her to put more trust in her family. She stares at him with glassy eyes, completely blown away by his emotional speech. The intense moment is suddenly interrupted as he offers her his signature hamburger again with a dopey grin. She instantly returns to her senses, and blushing hard, she snaps at him for touching her. Ah yes, nothing heals trauma like a cheeseburger distraction. But despite her reaction, the understanding level between them is restored to the previous 59%. The lad appears all goofy and blank, and soon their cute little sibling tussle begins. Later, while staring at a field day's poster, Tanuki anxiously realizes that he has been right about that wicked Mr. Hiroshi, because he just saw Kono's reaction. However, he vows that he will sort this whole matter in his own way. So the whole Class 2A has planned for a karaoke, but one of their classmates, Tanaka, who is also a committee member for field day, has a meeting scheduled at the same time. He desperately wants to go out with his friends, so that he is literally in tears when suddenly someone steps forward to attend the meeting in his place. Soon, the grand meeting takes place, when the president of the committee, Bandai, furiously notices that the male representative of Class 2A hasn't attended it. Instantly, the female representative of 2A, Mochizuki, raises her hand and confirms his absence. Bandai is very upset at Tanaka's slackness and then yells at everyone, declaring a punishment of writing apology letters if anyone doesn't show up on time from now on. It is then that Tanuki enters the room and apologizes for being late. Bandai shouts at him inquisitively, so he reasons that Tanaka is busy with his cram school, so he will be taking his place for that day. On Bandai's consent, he settles down. Mochizuki expresses concern for Tanaka, but Tanuki tells her the truth. She is surprised at Tanaka's carelessness, but Tanuki defends him by taking over the blame for the sudden swap. Sure, blame shifting is basically a competitive sport in school committees. Mochizuki is shocked to learn that, as she has always thought of him as an introvert. To an extent, he knows that she is right, but he has his reasons. He knows that both his and Kano's schools share the same grounds with a very vague boundary. So by becoming a committee member, he can freely roam the grounds and catch Mr. Hiroshi red-handed. He is just doing that to protect Kano, when suddenly Mochizuki inquires about him having a sister. Baffled, he looks at her directly for the first time, and he is puzzled to see a shady expression and a mysterious smile on her face. Great, so now even side characters come with plot twists and secret smiles. It appears that Tanuki doesn't want to reveal his relationship with Kano to his classmates. This is because she doesn't want that. And he terms her right in this regard because hearsays are quite common in this region. So when Mochizuki mentions his sister, he is quite taken aback. But then he quickly lies to her about being an only child. A confused look appears on her face, but then she chuckles, as she is quite aware that he is fibbing. The sharp girl has grasped his intention to protect someone, because all this time he has been under her strict vigilance, and she also knows that he hates standing out. Tanuki is puzzled about her odd behavior and wonders what she is planning to do. Their conversation is interrupted by Bandai's thundering roar as the second field day committee meeting commences. It appears that it is a yearly event, where many students participate. It is believed that it helps enhance their education through various sports activities. The showstopper of this event is the traditional scavenger hunt race, and the winners of last year's race were granted places in prestigious universities. With fiery eyes and a thundering tone, Bandai declares that this time they have to succeed at any cost. He mentions that all the work divisions are present in the documents, and the male and female committee members have to work together in pairs. Mochizuki's ears prick up at the phrase working in pairs, and in no time, the documents will be handed to them so that each pair can confirm their responsibility. Fortunately, Tanuki is made responsible for preparing the necessary goods for the event, and now he has a free pass to move legitimately without being singled out. The meeting is dismissed, and as he stands up, he realizes that he has to do one more thing for his sister with some prior prep. Unexpectedly, Mochizuki calls out to him coyly and offers to get their stuff from the classroom together. For the time being, he affirms, but he has yet to figure out her true nature. Great, because teamwork always comes with a side of mystery and suspicious smiles. While walking down the hallway, she admits wanting to connect to him for so long and expresses relief at being in the same committee with him. He stares at her thoughtfully and then pops up an unexpected query about her exact motive. She chuckles nervously at his sudden attack, but he points out her sudden investigative mode. She quickly reckons that he might be referring to her inquiry about his sister. She jeeringly exposes her intention to bully him, which literally takes him by surprise. She quickly expresses her irritation about his not making eye contact with her, even though she is dying to talk to him. She even expresses her awareness of his keeping his sister a secret. So when he probes her about the source of her information, she refuses to reveal that. She assures him that she will keep it to herself, but he refuses to trust her. She chuckles because he is exactly what she expected him to be: trust issues, the ultimate icebreaker for budding relationships. Meanwhile, his mind is quickly working on a counter-strategy to make her understand in his own way. But the Iron Lady doesn't back off and proposes a deal. She suggests they become lovers in exchange for their secrets. Her blasting offer baffles him completely. On the other hand, the siblings' house receives a visitor. The visitor is none other than Takanaka, but to his surprise, the door is opened by Kano, who condemns him for constantly ringing the bell. However, he is stunned to see her dressed so sassily even on an ordinary day. Takanaka is obsessed with her, even though she treats him like trash. He quickly composes himself and inquires about Tanuki. Kono is as clueless as him about his whereabouts, but his slackness irritates him because they were supposed to do homework together. For a while, there is an awkward silence between them as they freeze on their steps in the doorway. Takanaka is in a dilemma because he has witnessed a drastic transformation in her attitude over the years. Still, he doesn't want to do or say anything to infuriate her that will in turn upset Tanuki. But he cannot help notice her attractiveness. To break the ice, she invites him in to grab a bite, which delights him to the fullest as he realizes that no matter what, she is still very kind and caring, because apparently homework emergencies are best resolved over snacks and awkward flattery. Later, both Tanuki and Takanaka are fully engaged in playing a TV game, and he groans in frustration when he loses to him again. Tanuki remains as calm as always and reminds him that he has beaten him 8 times in a row. This is to show him that they are just wasting time and they should revert to studying, but a fiery Takanaka refuses to give up until he has taken him down. Tanuki is unable to comprehend his sudden, raging attitude, so Takanaka accuses him of being late at first, and then, on top of that, he was wooed by Mochizuki. Clearly, video games are the ultimate relationship investigation tools. He hysterically vows to defeat him and keeps awarding him with petty taunts. Takanaka's face convulses pitiably as he expresses desperation for some spice in his life as well. A furious Kano comes along, disturbed by the ruckus they are causing. She even lashes out at them for slackening their study plan, despite compelling her to join them in the first place. Takanaka keeps on wailing about how unfair life is treating him, and poor Tanuki can only stare at him helplessly. Kono returns to her menacing mode and threatens them to begin their study regime. She even hilariously terms the two jokers. The guys are instantly intimidated by her empowering aura and quickly oblige. As she seethes in frustration, the guys exchange meaningful glances and decide to remove their PlayStations. The story moves behind an hour when Tanuki arrived from school. When both Takanaka and Kono probe him about his late arrival, he mentions both the field trip committee and a sudden confession from a female classmate. Now, to avoid unnecessary drama from Takanaka's side, he quickly invites Kono for group study, but Takanaka cannot be easily pacified. At present, he is curious whether Tanuki could have kept the confession a secret. When he gives a puzzled stare, his friend nervously reveals his opinion. A flushed Tanuki doesn't deny that and wishes to be honest with her always. Takanaka's eyes widen in bewilderment because what he can see is something beyond love coming from Tanuki. The study session continues, but strangely, Kono is unable to focus just after Tanuki mentions that unexpected confession. She has always considered him her little brother, and in her eyes, he is that same careless little boy playing with mud. For some reason, she is unable to comprehend the source of her frustration, and she doesn't realize that the turbulence in her heart is actually shown on her face. So when Tanuki calls out to her, she tries to remain as cold as possible. He informs her about being a part of the sports festival committee and how he has been assigned a role in the executive meeting. She icily expresses her indifference. Nevertheless, he invites her to the event next week. Although she tries to appear cool, his request takes her off guard as she wonders why he is inviting her. Although Tanuki is adamant about convincing her, she refuses his invitation. He tries to coax her further, only to be restrained by Takanaka. Takanaka reminds him of the notorious rumors circulating the school and warns him that his secret could be leaked. A distressed Tanuki concurs with Takanaka's concerns. He is aware of how Kano is seen by others due to her low profile and odd sense of dressing. Apparently, fashion crimes and family secrets are equally dangerous in high school. The busybodies fail to reckon how their make-believe hearsays can hurt anyone's feelings and reputation. Up until now, both Tanuki and Kano have hidden their relationship from public eyes to protect their mental sanity. But then, keeping a secret for a prolonged time can result in exploitation because he knows that no matter what, Kano will protect him and their secret. so he feels that it is high time he should declare her family in public, before her dignity and self-esteem are compromised. He forces a huge grin on his face and open-heartedly invites her to the festival. When she stares at him wide-eyed, he assures her that the final decision will be hers, since she feels uncomfortable in crowds. His tactic works because Kano hates to be looked down upon, and acidly agrees to come. Tanuki chuckles in sheer relief. Takanaka seems perturbed about the whole thing. Meanwhile, she snaps at Tanuki for smiling so widely, but the lad is quite stubborn about it, which makes her super mad. Tanuki is all set to implement his mainstream strategy to make her understand. Later that night, Kano sighs regretfully for impulsively accepting his invitation. She is completely clueless about how to act in front of him, and her petty concern shows the super success of "let me understand," reaching a whopping 63%. So the next day, a week before the festival, as Bandai's voice roars at them for a meeting, Mochizuki whispers at him excitedly, reminding him that they are a team and they have to put in a joint effort. Teamwork. Now with 63% efficiency and dramatic whispering. Bandai swings his fist in the air, reminding them that the big event is just a week away. Soon, the final preparations will be carried out by the committee in pairs from each class. The lad is literally on fire while urging them to do their best as a team. Both Tanuki and Mochizuki have been assigned to prepare for the borrowing race, so they set out to write topics and put them in their respective envelopes. The duo is really having fun working together when she meaningfully suggests a special topic, responding to a confession. Because nothing says team bonding like practicing romance under deadline pressure. When he remains silent, she warns him that she won't be waiting for him forever, but the smart lad is not a bit intimidated by her because he still doesn't trust her intentions. However, he considers the fact that she doesn't have any intention to spread his secret because she could have done it in the beginning. He smartly manipulates her into believing that one shouldn't threaten someone they care about for things that are very dear to them. He declares the whole blackmailing antic as horrendous. He challenges her to confess to him directly to get a straight response from him. He speaks his mind and walks away, leaving her surprised. Soon, the preparations are complete, and Tanuki reaches the locker room and opens his bag, where his phone is lying on top. As mentioned before, Tanuki has joined the committee to save Kano. He intends to dig out his shortcomings to get him sacked from the school. His first step will be to sneak into the correspondence high school. He will use the civil dress code to his advantage to blend in with the crowd. In the worst scenario, even if he gets spotted, he can still get away since students can be accompanied by family members. But one thing he has to be careful about is not to be caught by the wicked Mr. Hiroshi, and also he has to find his weakness as quickly as possible, or else the plan will fail. As he is completely zoned out while walking, he accidentally bumps into Kano. When she tries to apologize, he swiftly covers himself with a hoodie and walks away. Kano doesn't recognize him and believes that he was some random shy guy, but she keeps on gazing at his back, having a queasy feeling of seeing him somewhere. She suddenly gets the hang of herself, reckoning that she is standing in her own school, and dashes away, shunning the whole matter as her imagination. She freezes on her steps again when the blaring loudspeaker calls out her name to report to the staff room immediately. She doesn't notice that a disguised Tanuki is standing quite close to her. She gulps down jitterily and reluctantly walks towards the staff room, while he clenches her phone tightly in his hand, because nothing screams normal school day like mysterious hoodie men and confiscated phones. As she approaches the career guidance office, Hiroshi has been impatiently waiting for her. Tanuki has followed her, but remains hidden. He has no choice but to keep an eye on her from a distance, but is having difficulty reading her expressions. He notices how scared she is to the point of shivering miserably in front of that rotten teacher. He plays with her mind about how he is the only teacher giving her liberty with deadlines. Next, he mentions how he handed her cousin a career form, and then fabricates a dreadful lie about Tanuki's offended reaction and his curt declaration of not having an older sister. The teacher is adamant about separating the siblings. He gaslights her about how her love for her family is one-sided and she is blindly following a lie. He comes dangerously close to her and fills her head with all the filthy things he can think of about Tanuki. He ardently grabs her shoulders and whispers malicious words into her ears, completely unaware that a disgusted Tanuki is witnessing all his sick tactics. A personal space violation is the perfect way to establish authority. He desperately hopes that Kano doesn't fall for his sinister lies. Kano weakly protests about all those things being nothing but a fib, but her self-esteem drops into the pits, and she sadly believes herself to be trash just like Hiroshi thinks. But then an image of a sincere and earnest Tanuki flashes into her mind, bringing positivity and light into the surrounding darkness, and she knows that he never lies. She comes back to her senses and menacingly warns Hiroshi not to mess with her. A shocked Hiroshi stares at her inquisitively, so she smirks and snaps back at him, making Tanuki proud of her first baby steps towards confidence. The wicked Mr. Hiroshi is completely taken by surprise because he wasn't expecting such audacity from the timid Kano. He wonders whether Tanuki is behind that drastic behavioral transformation. He refuses to give up and desperately tries to manipulate her, insisting that everyone around her is lying and that she can only rely on him. But instead of wavering, her smirk grows stronger. Her eyes shine with confidence as she proudly says she is surrounded by her real family. Hiroshi is stunned. He drops to his knees, staring at her in shock. He cannot believe how much Kano has changed. His thoughts drift back to when he first met her 2 years ago as her homeroom teacher. Back then, Kano was very naive. He remembers asking her about her future goals. At that time, she was dealing with serious family problems and had just moved in with relatives because of COVID. Like many students at the correspondence school, she was distant and struggling, having been badly abused by her biological mother. Hiroshi quickly understood her situation just by looking at her empty expression. When he asked about her dream, she nervously said she wanted to become a hairdresser. This surprised him, since her mother had chosen the same career. When he asked why, she admitted she only wanted to help her mother at the salon so they could stay together. Hiroshi was moved by how much she cared for her mother, but he chose not to get involved in her personal problems. He had already gone through a painful experience before. He once tried to help another student who was being abused, but that student later turned against him and falsely accused him of assault. Because of that, he lost his job and became the target of online harassment. Even his students abandoned him. After a long struggle, he finally found a new job and decided to stay out of students' personal lives. So when Kano came into his class, he planned to help her only as a teacher. But that changed when he saw her one day, injured, crying, and clearly suffering. He felt pity for that brave yet lonely girl, and his sense of protectiveness was ignited. He was all set to isolate her from her toxic relatives and to gain her full trust by brainwashing her, because clearly, protectiveness and brainwashing go hand in hand. His motives were clear: to get as close to her as possible. At present, he sinisterly highlights how her expensive education costs can overburden her family, resulting in her being renounced by them. But she calmly overrules his statement by vowing to have a proper talk with them. She terms her little brother her greatest savior for now. She beamingly apologizes to him for not coming up to his standards and thanks him for his concern. The sly fox is left dumbstruck as a sickening feeling sinks within him that she never needed him in the first place. In no time, Kano has already left, and he stares after her in great agony. In the next instant, he completely breaks down, screeching his nails against the floor and fearing to be left alone all over again. Meanwhile, Tanuki is still hiding behind the wall and has finally found out Hiroshi's greatest weakness, loneliness. He analyzes that making Kano understand will be Hiroshi's greatest defeat. He is relieved on that day's greatest discovery and plans to retrieve the recording on his return. Unexpectedly, someone catches him chuckling to himself. The person is none other than Mochizuki, who is surprised to see him in the correspondence high school. With a wide grin, she warns him of trespassing and mentions something about being in pairs. He is quite flustered to see her so suddenly and recalls warning her before going undercover. He cannot believe how stubborn she is and decides to deal with her cautiously. He casually asks about the sports festival preparations, and she answers confidently. Then, with a strange grin, she says she knows why he is here and guesses it is about Kano. He notices the mocking tone in her voice and realizes that her attitude toward him is not romantic. Well, at least someone here has realistic expectations. He clenches his fist tightly, trying to figure out her real motives. Meanwhile, 2 students randomly pass by, busy in their own chatter. Tanuki is aware of the notorious reputation of this school and is afraid of being caught due to the gym uniform adorned by Mochizuki. More than that, Hiroshi might also get suspicious of his plans. At first, he thinks of fleeing, leaving her behind, but he cannot bring himself to trust her with keeping his secret safe, so he quickly grabs her hand and pulls her to a safe zone. The 2 students enter the men's room, where the duo is already hiding in a stall, and resume their idle chatter. After they are finished with their business, they switch off the lights and leave. Mochizuki takes the chance and playfully pulls him closer, calling it a secret date. He is completely confused and thinks she is acting strange. Slightly offended by his reaction, she complains, but he insists he is just confused. She then shyly suggests they talk for a while. He becomes nervous, unable to understand her sudden change in behavior. Just moments ago, she was blackmailing him, and now she is acting friendly. Frustrated, he pushes her away and scolds her for messing with him even though she doesn't like him. He tells her to take things seriously or she could get into trouble. Before he can finish, she cuts him off, looks away nervously, and admits that she actually likes him. Tanuki is left completely shocked, staring at her in disbelief. He actually wants to know the time she got hooked on him. She coughs jitterily and admits being sweet on him for a long time. Tanuki is terrified for a second to think he is facing a desperate stalker who can do anything to sate her romantic feelings. Instantly, he zones out to the time when an excited Takanaka mentioned yandere, an age-old manga in which an innocent female protagonist suddenly turns into a violent and possessive pursuer. Tanuki recalls how animatedly Takanaka glorified the insane phenomenon as pure love going berserk. At present, noticing Mochizuki's flushed and abashed appearance, he wonders whether she belongs to that dangerous category. Now he doesn't want to believe in Takanaka's ridiculous chatter, but cannot help noticing those yandere-like traits in her. Deciding to play it safe, he gently settles her down on the toilet seat and then pulls off his sweater to her amusement. But to her immense shock, he presents the sweater to her and requests that she put it on. A bold strategy, solve emotional chaos with spare clothing. This is because he doesn't want them to get caught and get into trouble. He turns around so that she can comfortably change her clothes. He plans to treat her normally after she fails to capture his ignorance, warning, and rejection. This is because his utmost priority is to get back to school without creating any fuss. Next, a warm smile brightens his face as he thinks about Kono's brilliant performance that day. Out of nowhere, Mochizuki lightly kisses the back of his neck and thanks him, saying she admires how consistent he is. Tanuki is left stunned and looks at her in confusion. She explains that she noticed he doesn't easily trust anyone when it comes to his sister. Then she firmly says she will follow his way, let her understand, to express her true feelings for him. With a bright, determined look, she adds that she also wants to have a proper talk with his sister. Meeting the family already, his is moving at a perfectly reasonable speed. Tanuki gazes at her pitifully for going completely bonkers. Soon, the big event arrives, and as expected, Bandai is on fire as he hysterically claims to make this field day an historical event. He energetically pep-talks his team members to give their best shot. Tanuki is standing still and sneaks a glance at Mochizuki standing right beside him. As the usual hustle and bustle of the event begins, it can be seen that a flustered Kano is already feeling uneasy in the mob and is desperate to go home. Bandai keeps loudly praising his team and bragging about their efforts under his leadership. His steamy commentary runs parallel with the various sporting events. He even urges the spectators to render their full support to the participants. It can be seen that the students are all excited and enjoying it every bit. While receiving a heavy rope for the next contest, Tanuki's mind is still stuck on Kano. It appears that he had invited her that day to boost her fallen self-esteem, ruthlessly crushed by the slanderer Mr. Hiroshi. He wants her to come so that he can make her understand that in no way should she hide her feelings from him, and she should be adamant in pursuing her career goals. He is so zoned out that he doesn't realize that Mochizuki has been observing his troubled expression. On the other hand, Tanuki's parents are cheering for their son on one of the stands. They are delightfully surprised to learn that their introverted son is an active member of the committee. His mother wonders whether Kano was aware of that. She is taken aback by that unexpected query and irritably affirms she is further infuriated when his mother teases her for finally getting along with him. She bitterly tries to deny that and is dreadfully uncomfortable in the crowd. To add salt to an injury, his parents share meaningful smiles, igniting her rage further. His father playfully encourages her to help them cheer for Tanuki, who is about to handle the famous tug-of-war. Kono stares at him wide-eyed as the crowd behind her cheers for him madly. The fiery commentary from Bandai goes hand in hand. Kono is angry at being manipulated by him to attend this overcrowded festival. On top of that, the passion and excitement of high school kids younger than her is quite unnerving for her. Still, seeing Tanuki take part in it changes the game for her as she mischievously whispers a play-goal cheer to him. Their gazes meet, and miraculously, his face breaks into a fresh, energetic grin. The sudden transformation is deeply noted by Mochizuki as he wraps up the contest with great zeal. So when he tells her to be cautious while wrapping up the thick rope, she breaks into an amused chuckle, remarking on his sudden generosity. He sheepishly tries to hide his embarrassment by instructing her to help him move away the stuff. As they walk along, Mochizuki suddenly turns around and awards a dazzling smile to Kono, leaving her completely puzzled. She wonders whether his helper looked her way on purpose, and so the first half of the event ends on an irritating note for Kono. And naturally, confusion wins the day yet again. Takanaka and Tanuki are all set for the next contest. Takanaka wonders whether his super performance will make him popular with the girls. Tanuki is surprised at his energy, so Takanaka expresses his desperation to defeat him. Meanwhile, Mochizuki is amused by their idle chatter and makes a cheeky comment. Takanaka is blown away by her girl-next-door charms, and he seems envious of the growing proximity between her and Tanuki due to the field day committee. Tanuki's lips remain pursed firmly, while the lady beams like bright sunshine. Tanuki senses something suspicious about her coming along with him, despite Takanaka's presence, and he feels like trouble is on the way. To his surprise, she suddenly pokes his forehead and teasingly points out his serious expression. He notices she is trying to act bold, even with Takanaka there. When he insists his face always looks like this, she moves closer and calls him a liar. Takanaka is stunned by the lively scene in front of him. Tanuki grows nervous and tries to defend himself, but she playfully points out the cute look he gets when he thinks about someone he likes. He becomes a little flustered, which only makes her laugh more. After watching quietly, Takanaka suddenly declares that they are made for each other, making things awkward. Tanuki gets annoyed at the rude comment, while Mochizuki laughs. Takanaka becomes overjoyed, saying they remind him of a bickering couple from a rom-com. Tanuki doesn't like that at all, and even wonders if he's catching Mochizuki's fever. Takanaka is surprised by Tanuki's stiff reaction, but then notices his family, with Kano standing in front. He quickly leaves to meet them. Mochizuki notices how happy he looks when he sees Kano and feels a bit down, while Takanaka is thrilled. He searches through the crowd until Kano calls out to him, and he feels relieved to see them together at the event. His parents proudly praise his work as a committee member. His father gets so emotional that he starts crying loudly while praising him, showing no sense of subtlety. His mother apologizes for him, but Tanuki already knows how dramatic his father is. She quickly hints at something Kano has specially brought for him. She apprehensively brings out a bento that he had forgotten to take along with him that day. He gratefully receives it. Instantly, his mother comes forward and clarifies that they prepared it after he had left. A humiliated Kano gazes at her irritably for blurting out their secret. A warm smile breaks on his face as he wholeheartedly expresses his gratitude. Turning as red as a tomato, she avoids looking at him, but warns him to finish each and every scrap in it. He gives her an intense gaze, really concerned about her well-being. His smile deepens on the thought that she actually took the pains to cook for him and then denies it on his face. Suddenly, some random lads pass by and point at Kano, mockingly calling her a fashionista from a cheapskate school. While having lunch, Tanuki digs into the bento and finds the first item slightly burnt. He imagines her cooking irritably, making predictable mistakes, and then, in his imagination, he renders his full support to her. Meanwhile, Takanaka is startled to see him zoning out while staring at the eggs. He sheepishly grins, trying to dilute the effect. From there, he goes on a non-stop ramble about how she must have gone to great lengths to prepare his favorite tamagoyaki, even guessing the mistakes she might have made. His over-the-top talk creeps Takanaka out, but he is impressed to learn that Kano and his mother specially prepared a bento for Tanuki. Tanuki feels satisfied, seeing how things are turning out, with Kano becoming a part of his family. Takanaka is really happy for him, but he doubts whether Tanuki understands that his feelings for his sister. Meanwhile, the same mischief makers mention Kano's name in a derogatory manner. Both Tanuki and Takanaka can smell the upcoming mishap, as the group is bad news. They keep on bad-mouthing Kano and even target her vulnerability. They suspect she has family in their high school, which indicates her presence at the event. They begin crossing the line, slandering her, and Takanaka becomes increasingly anxious, realizing the situation has spiraled because of Field Day's intense atmosphere. He privately resents Tanuki for inviting her, even though he suspected things might go wrong. Noticing Tanuki's tense expression and how hard he seems to be holding himself back, Takanaka starts to wonder if there is another motive behind his actions. Concerned, he cautiously asks if he is okay, but Tanuki stays silent. Trying to break the tension and support his friend, Takanaka suddenly removes his shirt. The entire class freezes, staring at him in stunned silence. Tanuki is shocked to see Takanaka. Tanuki expresses his concern about the dire consequences Takanaka will have to face for his bravery. Takanaka cautiously tells Tanuki that he understands they share the same motive for bringing Kano to the field day, and that Tanuki even joined the field day committee for this purpose. In a sincere moment, Takanaka declares his full support and loyalty, saying he is willing to stand by him for the sake of their friendship. Tanuki feels proud to have such a devoted friend. Meanwhile, Mochizuki's friend notices her suddenly getting up from the lunch table and asks where she is going. Mochizuki calmly tells her to keep eating and says she just has some business to take care of. Moreover, Kano is taking some time off in a restroom as she is completely drained just by being a spectator at the festival. The whole day has been exhausting for her, from waking up early in the morning, rushing through the cooking process, dressing up in whatever fit was available, and then facing the annoying crowd. But then his dazzling smile made up for her day. It can be seen that the sibling bond has deepened greatly. She decides to head back since it is late when, unexpectedly, Mochizuki enters the restroom and greets her pleasantly. Kono instantly recognizes her as Tanuki's helper and is quite uncomfortable in her presence. She is all set to flee the scene when Mochizuki shows interest in talking to her. The poor girl cannot escape since Mochizuki invites her to have lunch with her. Mochizuki is so convincing that, reluctantly, Kono is forced to follow her and ends up having lunch with her, because saying no was clearly never an option. Mochizuki expresses her surprise at discovering Kono in a restroom. In response, Kono explains how she avoids crowds and has communication issues. Mochizuki heartily expresses her delight in meeting her as Tanuki's older sister, but Kono secretly condemns Tanuki for being a big mouth and suspects something is cooking between the two. After spending some time with her, Kono has a slight heart change about her as she declares Mochizuki a nice match for Tanuki. A tinge of disappointment hits her again when she discovers Mochizuki is far superior to her. That comparison escalated quickly. It is then that Mochizuki expresses her desire to confide in her and dramatically proclaims having an interest in a classmate. She also mentions how that guy is not picking up her signal despite her attempts. She playfully places her hand on Kono's and asks for advice about romance, since Kono is older. Kono starts to feel unsure of herself under Mochizuki's strong presence. Then Mochizuki gently but firmly holds Kono's face and seriously asks how much she really knows about relationships and intimacy. Our girl pulls herself away, telling her icily to express her sincerity to him for starters. A rare moment of actual sensible advice. How unexpected. She is super mad at her for misjudging her in their first meeting. Mochizuki is surprised because Kono is very different from the rumors. Kono gets flustered again at Mochizuki's teasing comment, but she just smiles and decides to leave since she's done. Kono, now annoyed, keeps asking about the rumors, but Mochizuki playfully refuses to tell her. And so the second half of the sports festival begins. The crowd, including Tanuki's family, heads towards the stands. His parents are excited to learn that he is participating in the scavenger hunt race, and he is finally entering his glorious moment. Tanuki's mother is expecting the same kind of zeal from Kono, but, on the contrary, she appears melancholic. His mother stares at her thoughtfully, and then expresses her gratitude to her for helping out in the morning. At least, someone is having a good time. Kono is still disturbed by Mochizuki's revelation about the rumors regarding her circulating. All she is worried about is that they might land Tanuki in trouble. Her self-esteem is about to spiral down when Tanuki's mother assures her comfortingly. Kono stares at her wide-eyed, realizing how she seems to have noticed her blues but doesn't find it appropriate to pry. Finally, she breaks into an appreciative smile. Meanwhile, a strange hooded fellow is walking behind them and gets excited on spotting Kono. Because no peaceful moment goes uninterrupted here, it is revealed that he is none other than the notorious Mr. Hiroshi, who keeps on whispering insanely to himself regarding Kono. Meanwhile, the participants of the scavenger hunt race are told to assemble and line up to receive number tickets. Tanuki receives his card with thanks and is all set for his secret mission. In this exciting game, a participant has to draw a lot and then borrow whatever is mentioned on the ticket. It appears that the game is quite popular with the masses, and he hopes that this will bring a great change in Kono. Despite his determination, he is shivering like a leaf when suddenly Mochizuki pops up from nowhere and assuringly wraps her arm around his neck. His heart skips a beat as she gently pats him. He fears that her cheap antics will send odd vibes to others who might think they are dating. With a forced smile, he shoves away her hand, trying to appear normal. Mochizuki is thoroughly amused at his caution, but he believes that their thought processes are quite similar. She claims to be on his side and wishes him success, but somehow he has this queasy feeling that she might be up to something when he penetrates through her eyes, and for once, that suspicion might actually be justified. Bandai's roaring commentary prevails throughout the stadium, highlighting the rules of the scavenger's race. Tanuki, along with others, has to draw a lot, pick the item according to the theme on the card, and then rush towards the goal. Even the audience is encouraged to participate by giving full support. All the participants are curious about the themes, and one of them tries to dig them out from Tanuki, knowing that he is a committee member, but as expected, he chooses to remain silent. This race is more of an entertainment than a sport. Now usually no one bothers to race through the first lap, but Tanuki has to do the other way to get his required theme. So, on the gunshot, he swiftly dashes towards the table. To everyone's surprise, the other participants mock him for showing such enthusiasm. Takanaka anxiously overhears the loudspeakers in the front row, trying to discourage Tanuki rather than cheer. So he takes a huge breath and shouts out the loudest cheer he can to pep up Tanuki. His bold attempt shuts off the mischief makers in the front row. Even Bandai praised Tanuki for taking the massive lead and cheers for him. Finally, someone using their voice for something useful. Tanuki is the first one to reach the table, and as he picks up a card, everyone wonders which theme he will draw. Unfortunately, the theme he receives isn't the one that he had set up, which was family-related. He knows this because earlier he had marked the envelope for his convenience. To his horror, the swapped theme is related to hurting Kano, and he instantly figures out the culprit who has messed up the game for him. On the other hand, a victorious Mochizuki chuckles wickedly while holding a card titled Precious Family. On the contrary, Tanuki's parents become over-emotional like conventional parents to see their child ahead in every trivial thing. Kano cautiously checks on their overflowing joy and reminds them that Tanuki still has to fulfill the theme's demands, because celebrating every minor victory is clearly a competitive sport in their house. But Kano's vigilant gaze can sense that something is bothering Tanuki as he stands dejectedly in the middle. The troublemakers grab the opportunity to belittle him again about his sudden loss of enthusiasm. Kano is worried to hear those venomous words and wonders why people do that. Her mind drifts off to 5 years ago, when, even at that time, Tanuki's family treated her like their own, and Tanuki had always been so keen to interact with her. Sadly, her real family was quite different, and she was frequently abused by her own mother. So one day, while attending a music club, a guitarist noticed her bruised face and quickly figured out the cause behind that. She was shocked at his shrewdness, but he mentioned some girls who always discussed what she was going through. This came as a surprise to her because usually she had always been ignored by everyone, but the lad blamed her for lacking communication skills. His accusation amused her because she had always been a topper. She had always found him to be a good listener, and they both were members of the same club in school. Suddenly, the lad wrapped his arms around her and insisted on going on a date. Kano went pale out of fear and blamed herself for giving him the liberty. She was completely clueless about why she always ended up being mishandled by whom she trusted the most. Then, on an impulse, she bumped him hard on his chin and freed herself from his vile clutches. Without wasting further time, she fled from the scene, slamming the door behind her. All her way, she was so perturbed that she couldn't even bring herself to confide in anyone. Later, her classmates teased her and said demeaning things about her. They even badmouthed her mother, calling her insane. Kano miserably realized that someone was spreading hideous rumors about her around the school. But staying strong, she snapped back at them and called them two-faced for pretending to care about her on her face while being busybodies behind her back. Finally, she dropped out of that awful school, and her mom's behavior got worse, so Tanuki's family took her in. She was so embarrassed by herself, she further coiled herself in a shell to avoid being a trouble to them. At present, she is taken aback by Tanuki's urgent call. Tanuki is praised for finally taking action, and others start following him. When he asks Kano to join him, she feels nervous because she's afraid her secret might be revealed. But Tanuki insists, saying she's the only one who fits the theme. She tries to push him away, annoyed, but he smiles and says he wants to proudly call her his family in public. When she still hesitates, he begs her to help him win, saying he has worked hard and will be embarrassed if he loses. Kano is left speechless, and even his parents encourage her. Though she knows Tanuki is being clever, she feels overwhelmed by the warmth and affection from him and his family. Tanuki is relieved when she finally affirms to come along. So when he holds her hand, Bandai's bellowing voice confirms Tanuki's completion of his task. But the mischief makers become restless as they recognize Kono as the same fashionista from the correspondence school. They curiously probe the matter from Takanaka, but he excitedly shuts them down. Tears of joy flow down his cheeks as he hysterically cheers for the siblings, because cheering for someone else's sibling is clearly peak entertainment. He loudly encourages Tanuki to quickly reach the goal and finish the race. Several other classmates join Takanaka in his endeavors. On the other hand, an overjoyed Kano sneaks a glance at Tanuki, thinking that it has been ages since they did that. She recalls how his childish hands have transformed into big, strong ones over the years. However, the gentle tug from his side has always been the same. She realizes how his attitude has always been the same, and he has always seen her as family, despite her moodiness and her bad reputation. It dawns on her that he has always been her savior. Finally, Tanuki drags her to the finish line, and soon it is time to announce the results. When Tanuki's draw card is revealed, it says, "The person I like." Everyone, including Kano, is shocked. Then Tanuki boldly calls Kono his beloved older sister. She is completely stunned as he keeps praising her as kind and caring. Bandai hands the microphone to Kono, and with strong emotion, she calls Tanuki her cute little brother. It can be seen that their sibling bond has reached nearly its summit, and Tanuki firmly holds her hand. An impressed Bandai urges the audience to give generous applause for the duo. Both Tanuki and Kono are flushed with pride as the crowd cheers for them wildly. On the contrary, Mr. Hiroshi is standing all alone, camouflaged and in tears. He mumbles to himself, condemning Kono for betraying him, and he contemptuously vows to crush Tanuki. Unexpectedly, someone reprimands him for being selfish. He turns around in surprise to find Mochizuki smirking at him. Like a bolt from the blue, she flips him and slams him down on the ground to paralyze him for a while. With an uncanny beam, she advises him not to disturb Tanuki, trying to deepen his family bond. The cat-like Mochizuki pins him down so subtly that no one notices them, and she vows that she won't let the wicked Hiroshi meddle in that precious love. As the event reaches its climax, Kono stares at her hand happily. Bandai enthusiastically begins the closing ceremony and is about to reveal the results. The white team wins with 450 points, beating the red team's 300. The organizer praises the committee for their teamwork and thanks everyone, wishing them success in studies and a safe trip home. Tanuki's parents head home after the event, and Kono, a bit shy, thanks them, something unusual for her. Happy, they decide to celebrate with a nice meal. Tanuki stays behind to finish work with the committee and wonders where Mochizuki is, since he hasn't seen her. Suddenly, Bandai calls him over. Tanuki gets nervous, thinking he might be in trouble, but instead, Bandai praises him for helping his sister and doing a great job in the scavenger hunt, even though he had doubted him before. Not only that, but he animatedly invites him to the next month's rap party and then goes away to help wind up the event. The sky is about to get darker when he is finally done and finally meets Takanaka, who has been waiting for him for a long time. Clearly, waiting outside until sunset is the most dramatic way to say hello. He gravely places his hand on his shoulder and then breaks into a sudden emotional outburst. He lauds Tanuki for finally achieving his goal. He becomes so emotional that he is unable to hold back the free fall from his eyes. Tanuki watches him affectionately and expresses his gratitude to him for cheering for him whenever needed. Takanaka watches him anxiously as Tanuki turns all sweaty and exhausted, but Tanuki is so absorbed in his thoughts that he doesn't watch his step and falls on the step. He hesitantly calls out to Tanuki, but the latter has already collapsed. The next morning, he is thunderstruck to see a beaming Mochizuki in front of him, who had brought him to her place after he collapsed. A panic-stricken Tanuki recalls Takanaka being with him until he lost consciousness. But she doesn't give importance to Takanaka's absence and grins at him sinisterly. The hapless lad finds himself tied to the chair, and to his terror, she roughly grabs his cheeks and then compels him to force down a huge spoonful of a special porridge that she made. Nothing says romance like choking on homemade oatmeal. He gazes into her huge, hypnotic eyes as she confesses her love for him. Out of the blue, he abruptly wakes up from his sleep and realizes that he has been dreaming all along. It has been 3 days since he passed out from fatigue, and he is still lying on his bed with vacant eyes. A concerned Kono calls out for his attention, and he is relieved to see her nursing him instead of that oddball Mochizuki. She has anxiously noticed how restless he has been during his sleep and asks him about his well-being. She even offers some porridge to him, which he accepts with slight astonishment that she actually took the pain to make it herself. She warns him to blow on it before eating since it is quite hot. However, she expresses her concern about his sleep difficulty issue, but he just stares at her blankly because it is true that ever since she had started to act as a rebel, he was unable to sleep due to anxiety. Seeing him perturbed, she immediately gets up, puts away the porridge, and forces him down on the bed while adjusting his sheets. A bewildered Tanuki wonders about her strange actions, but she is all set to fulfill her duty as his elder sister. An embarrassed Tanuki tries to protest being treated like a child, but she keeps on patting his head. She whispers consoling words, and he notices that her hand seems so much smaller than before when he held it. Still, he feels a sense of protection and comfort from its touch. As he slowly drifts towards sleep, there is a sound of the doorbell. Kono is surprised to see Mochizuki standing outside, greeting her with that signature grin. Mochizuki says she wants to see Tanuki because she's worried about him. Kono feels a bit nervous around her but still lets her in. They sit awkwardly at first, until Kono asks why she came on a school day. Mochizuki laughs and says she was suspended for taking down an adult. Kono is shocked, so Mochizuki explains that the person was trying to ruin a special moment between someone she cares about and another person who was misunderstood. Obviously, the best way to settle disputes is full-on adult wrestling, Kono instantly figures that she is indirectly trying to target her, so she curtly tells her to be straightforward. Mochizuki amusingly stares at a much stronger Kono. However, she doesn't choose to respond at the moment and offers her a creamy puff. Kono's mouth begins to drool on seeing a huge, crispy puff placed before her. Mochizuki smiles at her innocence and finds her so adorable that she is about to flick the crumb sticking out on the side of her mouth when, out of the blue, Tanuki appears and swiftly grabs her hand. He protectively wraps his arm around Kono and suspiciously probes Mochizuki about her intentions. He curtly throws at her a series of queries about her sudden visit on a school day. Mochizuki seems least affected by his irate behavior and beamingly throws a bomb at him about her being his new neighbor living all alone. She meaningfully hopes that they all get along nicely and close. She coyly tries to flatter him, but Tanuki is still suspicious about her sudden move next door and the fact that she is living alone. Amused, she straightforwardly mentions that she wants to keep a close eye on him and also wants to live independently due to recent circumstances. Tanuki suspects that the crazy girl is going through this change just because she has feelings for him, but this seems quite odd for a high schooler to be that self-sufficient and also without adult supervision. He stares at her with many questions buzzing in his mind, but she offers to have a nice and calm talk. He reluctantly settles down on a chair and is adamant about protecting Kono from that lunatic girl. After a bout of awkwardness among the trio, Mochizuki excitedly flashes 4 tickets for a trip to the hot springs. She lures them further by mentioning other perks about the place, like saunas, eateries, and massages. Mochizuki mentions how she wants to pull him out of fatigue, and at the same time, do something special for his sister. When Tanuki hears the rest of her explanation, he starts to worry and imagine all kinds of uneasy situations about Mochizuki being alone with Kono. Alarmed, he is about to refuse her invitation. But unexpectedly, Kono agrees to go. She doesn't want to disappoint Mochizuki, who seems genuinely worried about Tanuki, and she also admits she wants to see a fancy place like that. However, Tanuki notices her nervous behavior and realizes she might be agreeing even though she's uncomfortable. He is about to probe her anxiously when an unexpected doorbell interrupts in the middle. Mochizuki grins secretly as if she exactly knows about the visitor. As Tanuki flips over the door flap, Takanaka's blaring voice and animated face strike him. He is irritated by the sudden ruckus, but then Mochizuki confirms that Takanaka will be the 4th person to accompany them, and she hopes that now Tanuki can join them stress-free. After a refreshing time at the springs and tub, the group heads towards a restaurant. Takanaka is mesmerized by its food and keeps on hogging it despite Tanuka's reminder of their plan to use the sauna next, but he is too busy munching on the crispy karagi. A grinning Mochizuka mentions the ingredients of its batter and calls it a good balance. Tanuki can see Mochizuka's and Takanaka's soaring moods, but is concerned about Kono's low spirits. He fears that she might be down due to Mochizuki's advances, but to his astonishment, she slurps down a long chunk of spaghetti and beamingly expresses her delight. He quickly turns away in sheer embarrassment, regretting his prior concern. He doesn't want to make her self-conscious, as that might negatively affect their relationship. She quickly diverts his attention towards his food that is getting soggy. She coyly reminds him of his own words that when food is eaten together, it is the tastiest. He blushingly concurs with her, and soon both divert their attention towards their own bowls. Meanwhile, a smirking Mochizuki is watching them secretly. Next, they all go towards the sauna room, where everyone is resting on heated stone slabs, which gradually warm up one's body and can be used by beginners. Mochizuki and Tanuki are the first ones to lay their sheets on their respective slabs. Kono nervously glances at Tanuki, then flaps her sheet on a slab between Tanuki and Mochizuki, so they are all relaxing and finally doze off. Half an hour later, when Tanuki wakes up, he is shocked to see Takanaka and Kono already drained from the intense heat. Tanuki playfully teases him for chickening out so quickly. However, Mochizuki seems chirpier than usual, which shows her amazing stamina. Kono openly expresses her envy for her confidence, and Tanuki is aware of her low tolerance levels, so he plans to go to the recreation area next. Apparently, survival in a sauna is now an Olympic sport. But before he can announce that, Mochizuki instantly comes up with the idea of heading towards White Dragon's Ascension, a luxurious spa with an abnormally high heat index. Takanaka instantly backs out because that is completely out of his league. Mochizuki doesn't force him, but Kono is lost in deep thought. Instantly, she brightens up and suggests that Tanuki accompany Mochizuki while she can grab an ice cream with Takanaka instead. Tanuki is not pleased at all because he knows that she is just showing her consideration by keeping herself and Takanaka away from them. But before he can respond, a triumphant Mochizuki quickly grabs the opportunity to spend some time with him alone, to his sheer frustration. Later, the duo is present in the sizzling room, where heat is being generated from some hot stones, and several people are sitting around it. Mochizuki challenges him to outstay her in this hellish heat, but he crossly refuses to accept that. She doesn't give up and suggests that the loser has to do one thing the winner says. He irritably glares at her, wondering whether he would be able to control her attitude if he wins. Soon the event is about to begin, and the attendants are advised not to push themselves in this immense heat. Instantly, the whole area is covered with a misty fragrance, blinding everyone's vision. In no time, the surrounding temperature soars like a volcano, making it difficult to bear for most of them. Apparently, scented sauna torture is the latest wellness trend. One by one, all the participants leave the room, and only Mochizuki and Tanuki are left behind. She smirks at him for melting like a candle and teases him for that, but he stays strong. After a while, she realizes that the lad is a tough horse and won't give up easily. She mentions how he remained headstrong, binding his family members with Kono and developing a next-level understanding with her. Mochizuki claims about Kono's equal involvement in his mission. Tanuki appears perplexed at her strange allegation, so she expresses her desire to be part of his ideal family if she wins. She clarifies her intention to get married to him and live with his sister without changing his family dynamics. Tanuki is shocked to the core to hear her real motive, because up until now he suspected her of harming Kono and was quite vigilant around her, but realized that his imagination was running wild all this time. He observes that heat has started to bother her as she is sweating so heavily. He quickly pushes his head closer towards her, intending to win this contest since he doesn't want to marry her in the first place. He realizes that Mochizuki is going through an emotional surge and tries to take advantage of the situation. A strange look appears on her face, and she shoves him away and begins to leave the room. He declares himself the winner of the challenge, and she decides to generously let him have this one. Tanuki is left in a stupor by her odd and unexpected reaction, because he thought she would easily give in to his endeavors. On the other hand, Takanaka jumps in joy on seeing a huge manga collection at the facility, while Kano's gaze fixates on a sign indicating the availability of various staff vacancies in the facility. Time flies, and soon the sky becomes inkier. Takanaka is the first to leave and thanks Mochizuki for inviting him. Tanuki's mother apologizes for not giving them a ride because there isn't enough space, but Tanuki says it's fine since they'll take the train. On the way to the station, Tanuki wonders why Mochizuki is coming along. She reminds him that she's his neighbor. Kono then happily thanks Mochizuki for the nice trip. Excited, she suggests another place for their next outing, but Tanuki quickly refuses. She talks about how they're getting closer and how great the place is, but Tanuki firmly says no and explains he only agreed this time because of Kono. Nothing says adventure like someone else planning your every move. An amused Mochizuki teases him, and he has no reservations about that. A warm smile suddenly appears on Kono's face as she watches them bicker. They both realize that she is gradually following them and then stops at one point. With a wry smile, she expresses her delight to see them together like this and hopes to experience something on her own. Suddenly, she reveals her intention to apply for a part-time job to the duo's surprise. Everything is so unexpected that Tanuki doesn't feel pleased with her decision, although according to him, she is making remarkable progress. Tanuki tries to convince himself that her choice is reasonable, being an adult. Next, she thanks Mochizuki for planning the whole thing for Tanuki and promises that next time she will be their host. A puzzled Tanuki is in a dilemma about whether their bond has stopped deepening any further. He feels guilty for not being able to accept her progress and considers himself similar to that toxic Mr. Hiroshi. He blames Mochizuki for messing up with her, as Kono has suddenly distanced herself from him. His heart is beating so fast that he fears it might tear out of his chest, while an amused Mochizuki watches his puzzled expression amusingly. Out of the blue, it strikes Tanuki that Kono is getting better at lying because, for a while, he completely went off track and ignored strengthening the bond with her. It is then that the sly Mochizuki took over and manipulated her about family dynamics. With a sharp glint in her eyes, a grinning Mochizuki gazes at him for approval of Kono's decision. He hesitantly agrees to support her, but this time, he vows to be more vigilant around Kono and make her understand his way. After bringing her on the track, he plans to kick Mochizuki out of their lives, who seems to be the main culprit in brainwashing his sister, because nothing says sibling strategy like plotting a hostile takeover of your neighbor's influence. Kono is being interviewed for a part-time job, and she tries her level best to appear as confident as possible, claiming to have 2 previous job experiences. As he proceeds with more questions, she has this weird, queasy feeling in her stomach. Here, job interview is like your internal organs staging a revolt. She is also prepared for sensitive queries and honestly reveals being bullied in her school and about the domestic circumstances that drove her to drop out of high school. To her surprise, the young man remains as calm as a pond. Next, he shows concern about whether she would handle a busy and noisy environment as a first-timer in the food industry. This question hits her hard, but she confidently replies that their recruitment flyer mentioned that they welcomed newcomers. She believes that she wants to get some hands-on experience to work with the normal hustle and bustle. When questioned about her main driving force towards this job, she expresses her desire to pay back her little brother by being positive and independent as he pulled her out of a depressive mode. The young man's deadpan expression makes her uncertain about her responses, but the young man breaks the news that she finally made it. He explains that her motives and related answers are more than enough to land her this job. She respectfully bows in front of him, hoping to have a nice working relationship. After completing the formalities, she comes out of the place, thoroughly relieved. Suddenly, she receives a message from Tanuki about the interview. Apparently, modern job success now comes with instant texting pressure. She quickly mentions that she made it. He expresses his relief and is in quite a celebratory mode. His enthusiasm makes her smile. Meanwhile, the restaurant where she has applied is having a busy hour with many orders being lined up. Someone suddenly inquires about a person named Nakata, as he has arrived at work late as usual. The perky young lad tries to hurry towards the main area when suddenly his gaze falls on Kano's informative form. Predictably, the lad is completely knocked out by her name and her attractive looks. The next day, Komo is in for another surprise at school when she learns that Mr. Hiroshi has resigned and is replaced by an elderly woman as their new homeroom teacher. It is alleged that he got into hot water with a girl from the neighboring school and left abruptly. Kano sighs in relief after ages and is about to leave when the new teacher brings up the issue of her future goals. Kano is greatly perturbed because, although she has full support from Tanuki and others, she knows that she has to be financially sound first. Financial independence now comes with mandatory surprise teacher drama. Kano remembers Mochizuki's advice about making sacrifices to support each other in an ideal family. Inspired by this, she decides to start looking for a job and informs her teacher, who agrees to support her. Meanwhile, Tanuki is deep in thought, trying to understand why Kano made this decision. To figure it out, he even draws flowcharts on paper. As he analyzes the situation, he realizes there is still an important missing piece in understanding her progress. His thought process is interrupted by a Takanaka's comforting hand on his shoulder, who seems really concerned about him. Instantly, he decides to put the matter in front of him during lunch to get better clarity.